Welcome back to the channel. Today's story will hold your chest, squeeze your heart, and still make you smile before the end. Listen well, because what started as a street girl's cry turned into a tale no one saw coming. In a crowded Lagos junction, where buses honked like angry goats and traders shouted prices like war cries, a thin girl in a faded pink dress weaved through cars with a plastic bowl in her hands. Her eyes carried a kind of tiredness that shouldn't live in a child's face. Every morning, her uncle would drag her out, point to the road, and say, "Don't come back with empty hands, you hear me?" She would nod quietly, even though her stomach growled and her feet burned from the hot tar. Some drivers ignored her, some hissed, others threw coins without looking. She didn't cry anymore. Tears had become useless to her. But that day, something strange hung in the air. The sky was clear, yet the breeze carried a quiet whisper, as if Lagos itself was watching. She walked up to a sleek black SUV stuck in traffic. The windows were tinted, too clean, too shiny for that street. She knocked gently, expecting the usual brush-off. But the glass slid down slowly, revealing a man in a white shirt, gold watch flashing like sunlight. His eyes didn't look away. He didn't hiss. He didn't rush. "What's your name?" he asked softly. She froze. No one had asked her that in months. My name," she stammered. "Yes," he said, leaning closer, "your name." Behind her, her uncle watched like a hawk from a kiosk, eyes narrowing. He didn't like anything that didn't involve money. And right there, in the middle of that noisy road, something began to shift, small, almost invisible, but real. The man's calm voice lingered in her ears like a forgotten lullaby. She opened her mouth to speak, but her uncle's sharp whistle cut through the noise. Her heart jumped. She turned quickly, saw his warning eyes, and felt that familiar shiver run down her spine. I'm. Her words tangled like ropes. The man noticed the panic flicker across her face. He leaned closer, lowering his voice. "It's okay. You're safe here," he said gently. Safe. That word felt foreign to her, almost like a lie. But something in his tone made her believe it a little. She looked at him properly for the first time. His car smelled fresh, his shirt looked crisp, and his gaze carried both curiosity and concern. Before she could answer, the traffic started to move. Horns blared behind, impatient drivers shouting. She stepped back as the SUV rolled forward, her small frame swallowed again by the noise of the street. Her uncle stormed toward her, his face tight. "Why you dey stand there like wood? Where the money?" he barked, grabbing her arm. She winced but didn't fight. The plastic bowl was nearly empty. That meant trouble. "People no give today," she whispered. "Nah lie," he snapped. "You think say I know dey look you? You dey play ABI." His voice rose, attracting stares. She lowered her eyes, praying he would stop. Across the road, the man in the SUV glanced through his rearview mirror. Something about her face had unsettled him. He couldn't shake it off. He slowed the car, thinking. Back on the pavement, her uncle dragged her toward a corner, muttering under his breath. "Tomorrow, you go stand there from morning till night if not so." She didn't reply. She had learned that silence was safer. But deep inside, a tiny spark had been lit, a strange feeling she couldn't name. That night, she lay on the thin mat in their one-room shack, staring at the ceiling. Outside, Lagos hummed like a restless drum. She closed her eyes and saw his face again. The way he looked at her, like she mattered. For the first time in a long while, she whispered to herself, maybe tomorrow go different. Morning came with the usual noise of vendors calling, buses grumbling, and hawkers dragging trays through narrow streets. She woke up before the sun stretched fully, rubbing her eyes slowly. Her uncle was already pacing, his face carved with impatience. "You think say we come Lagos to sleep?" he barked. "Get up." She jumped to her feet, tying the loose ends of her dress. The air outside was still cool, but the roads were already alive. He shoved the plastic bowl into her hands. Today no dulling. I know one here story. She nodded quietly, keeping her thoughts to herself. They walked down the dusty road together, his strides fast, hers light and cautious. At the junction, he pointed to her usual spot between two traffic lanes. Nah here. No waka go anywhere, he warned. Then he turned to disappear into the crowd, probably to gamble away whatever she would bring. She stood there, watching cars line up as the morning rush began. Drivers shouted at each other, conductors hung on bus doors like restless birds, and the smell of roasted corn floated in the air. She tightened her grip on the bowl. A sleek black SUV appeared again, sliding through traffic like a quiet king. Her heart skipped. It was him. The window came down halfway, and that same calm voice called out, "Hey, you." She blinked, unsure if he meant her. "Yes, you," he smiled faintly. "Come closer." She stepped forward timidly. "What's your name?" he asked again. This time, she whispered, "Chioma." "Chioma," he repeated slowly, as if tasting the name. "That's beautiful. Do you come here every day?" She nodded. He glanced at the bowl, then back at her face. Something shifted in his eyes, a mix of anger and pity, though not directed at her. Behind her, from a distance, her uncle's figure appeared, lurking like a shadow. His eyes scanned the scene sharply. "Listen," the man said softly, leaning closer, "I'll come back later. Don't be afraid." She didn't fully understand what he meant, but his words wrapped around her like a warm cloth. As the car pulled away, a breeze brushed her cheek, and for a moment, the noise of Lagos faded. She whispered his name in her mind, even though she didn't know it yet. The rest of that day dragged like a stubborn goat. Chioma knocked on car windows, collected a few coins, and endured the usual stares. But her mind wasn't fully there, it kept wandering back to his voice, the way he said her name. By afternoon, the sun roasted the road mercilessly. Her feet burned, her throat felt dry, and sweat glued her dress to her skin. She found a tiny patch of shade beside a kiosk and sat for a moment, hugging the bowl close. Her uncle appeared not long after, his face dark with suspicion. "Why you sit down? You think say this na holiday?" "I just..." "Shut up," he snapped, snatching the bowl. He counted the coins, his jaw tightening. "This small thing. All this hours." She lowered her gaze, knowing better than to talk back. He shoved the bowl into her chest and hissed, "If you no bring better money before night, you go chop cane." As he stormed off, her eyes blurred for a second, but she blinked the tears away. Crying wouldn't help. Meanwhile, in an air-conditioned office high above the busy streets, the man from the SUV sat behind a polished desk. Papers lay forgotten as he stared out the window. Chioma's face had stuck in his mind like a stubborn memory. There was something about her, something he couldn't ignore. He pressed a button. "Bayo," he called. A tall man in a suit stepped in. "Yes, sir." "Find out about that girl near the Ojulegba junction. The one begging by the road," he said calmly. "I want to know who's controlling her." Bayo raised a brow. "Sir, that area rough. Oh. You sure?" "I'm sure," he replied. "Do it quietly." Back on the street, the evening breeze finally softened the heat. Chioma stood tired but alert. Traffic thickened again. Then, just as the sky began to blush with sunset, the familiar black SUV rolled back into view. Her heart fluttered. He kept his word. The window slid down, and this time, he didn't ask questions. He handed her a cold bottle of water and a wrapped meat pie. "Eat," he said gently. She stared at the food like it was treasure. Her hands shook as she took it. No one had ever given her anything like that. Chioma held the meat pie carefully, as though it might disappear if she blinked too hard. The cold water against her palm felt like a small miracle. She looked up shyly, unsure whether to say thank you or just smile. The man nodded gently, as if he already understood. Eat, he encouraged again. She bit into the pie slowly. The taste almost made her cry. Warm, soft, nothing like the dry crumbs she usually found. For a moment, the noise of Lagos melted away, and all she could hear was the sound of her own heartbeat. The man watched her quietly, his face unreadable but kind. Just then, her uncle's voice sliced through the air like a whip. Chioma! She froze. He was storming toward them, eyes blazing. Her stomach tightened. She quickly hid the bottle behind her back, but it was too late. Who give you this? He barked, grabbing the meat pie from her hand. Before she could answer, the man stepped out of the SUV. His presence changed the air. He wasn't just any man. The way he stood, calm but firm, made even the bus conductors nearby pause. I gave it to her, he said evenly. The uncle sized him up, forcing a fake smile. Ah, Oga, good evening. Oh. No vex. Na my niece be this. We dey manage small. The man's gaze hardened slightly. She's a child, not a tool. The uncle chuckled nervously, scratching his head. Oga, you no go understand. Na hustle we dey hustle. Chioma's eyes darted between them, fear tightening her chest. She knew how her uncle could get when challenged. The man didn't raise his voice, but something about his tone made it clear he wasn't leaving. What's your name? He asked the uncle. The uncle hesitated. Why you dey ask? Because I'm not blind, the man replied calmly. And I don't like what I see. People around began to watch quietly, pretending to mind their business but not missing a word. Lagos loves drama, especially the kind that happens at traffic stops. The traffic light turned green, cars began to honk, but neither man moved. Chioma's heart pounded fast. Something serious was unfolding, and she could feel it in her bones. The honking grew louder, drivers shouting as the traffic pressed forward, but the two men stood like wrestlers waiting for the drumbeat. Chioma's uncle gave a crooked smile, shifting his weight. Oga, a beg leave matter. She be small girl. Na wetin we dey use survive, he said, forcing his voice to sound light. But the man didn't blink. His eyes stayed steady on him. So you use her to beg, while you sit and wait to eat from her sweat? Murmurs rippled among the people nearby. Some bus conductors leaned closer, grinning at the free entertainment. A roasted groundnut seller paused mid-sale, eyes darting between the two men. The uncle's fake smile slipped. Oga, no insult me oh. You know no wetin dey happen. Na my family matter, no be your concern. The man's lips curved faintly, but not into a smile. The moment you put a child in the middle of a busy road, it became everyone's concern. Chioma's chest tightened. She wished the ground would open and swallow her. Her uncle's face darkened, and his grip on her arm tightened. She winced, but stayed silent. The man noticed. His voice dropped lower, calm but heavy like a drumbeat before rain. Let go of her hand. For a heartbeat, silence held the air. Even the traders went quiet, curious to see who would win this strange battle. Finally, the uncle scoffed and released her, muttering under his breath. Big men go just dey do like say dem holy. Na because una get money. The man didn't argue. He simply opened his car door and looked at Chioma. Go home now, he said softly. Tomorrow will be different. Her uncle yanked her away quickly, pulling her down the street, his words sharp and ugly. But Chioma hardly heard them. Her mind clung to one thing: tomorrow will be different. That night, sleep refused to visit her eyes. She lay awake, replaying the scene. The man's calm voice, his steady eyes, the way he stood up to her uncle, no one had ever done that for her before. Something inside her shifted. A seed had been planted. Morning came sharp and noisy, like Lagos always does. Chioma sat up slowly, her body still sore from her uncle's rough grip the previous night. The room smelled of damp clothes and cold pap. Her uncle was already awake, muttering to himself while tying his slippers. His mood looked bad, and bad moods usually meant trouble. She quickly folded her mat, hoping to move unnoticed, but he caught her eye. "You think say I no see how you day look that man yesterday," he snapped suddenly. Her heart skipped. "I no do anything." He sneered. "You think say people go just give you meat pie for free? You want carry your ye pity go chop better life abi?" She kept quiet, her fingers twisting nervously. He moved closer, lowering his voice but not the threat. "No try any nonsense today. If I see you near that car again, you go see Pepper." She nodded quickly, but inside, her thoughts raced. The man's words echoed in her mind, "Tomorrow will be different." Later that morning, she stood by the road again, holding her plastic bowl. Traffic rushed like a restless river. She scanned faces without meaning to, hoping, searching. Hours passed. Sweat gathered on her forehead. Then she saw it. The black SUV. Sliding through the chaos like it belonged somewhere else entirely. Her heart jumped, but fear followed fast. She remembered her uncle's warning. The car stopped near her spot. The window came down. He was there, calm, steady, like yesterday. "Chioma," he said. Hearing her name in his voice made everything else fade. She hesitated, glancing around. Her uncle wasn't in sight yet, but he was never far. "Come," the man said gently. "I won't hurt you." She took a tiny step forward, then another. "I told you yesterday," he continued softly, "today would be different. I meant it." Her fingers gripped the bowl tighter. A tiny breeze lifted the corner of her dress. The noise of Lagos roared around them, but right there by that car window, it felt like time slowed down. This wasn't just another traffic moment. It felt like a door quietly opening. She stepped closer to the car, her heartbeat dancing fast like drums at a village festival. The man looked at her with the same quiet strength, the kind that didn't shout but carried weight. "Chioma," he said softly, "do you trust me?" Her lips parted, but no words came out. Trust wasn't something she understood well. Her world was made of commands, not choices. Still, something in his eyes made her nod slowly, almost without knowing why. "Good," he replied gently. "I'm going to help you, but you have to be brave. Can you do that?" She swallowed hard and whispered, "Yes." He smiled faintly, and that tiny smile made her chest warm. Before he could say more, her uncle's voice ripped through the air like a rusty blade. "Chioma." Her heart sank. He was marching toward them, jaw tight, eyes blazing. The crowd sensed trouble and began to pause their hustle, turning heads like spectators waiting for a match. The man's expression didn't change, but his eyes sharpened. He stepped out of the SUV calmly, adjusting his sleeves like someone preparing for a serious conversation. Her uncle arrived, puffing like a hot kettle. "I warn you. I say make you no near this man again." He grabbed her arm roughly. "She's not your property," the man said steadily. The uncle laughed harshly. "You dey craze. Na my blood. You want come teach me how to handle my family." The man took a step forward, lowering his voice but not his authority. Using a child to beg on the street is not family business. It's wickedness. The uncle's face twisted. "Oga, a beg comet for road before I show you Lagos madness." People were fully watching now. Even a traffic warden had slowed down to see what was happening. Chioma's arm hurt under her uncle's grip, but she stayed quiet, her eyes locked on the man. Then, in one unexpected move, the man brought out his phone and made a quick call. His tone was calm but firm. "Yes. Come to Ojulegba Junction. Now. Her uncle's confidence flickered for the first time. Chioma didn't know who he called, but something deep inside told her everything was about to change. The street seemed to hold its breath. Chioma's uncle shifted uneasily, his grip still firm but his eyes darting around. The man stood there calmly, phone still in hand, as if he had already decided how this moment would end. Within minutes, a dark sedan pulled up, moving through the traffic with quiet authority. Two men stepped out, dressed neatly, not like regular officers but with the kind of presence that made people step back without being told. Lagos loves drama, but even Lagos knows when something serious is unfolding. Her uncle's voice cracked slightly. Who be these people? The man didn't answer him. Instead, he turned to Chioma. It's okay, he said softly. You're safe now. Safe. That word again. This time, it didn't sound strange. It sounded possible. The two men approached. One of them spoke firmly. We've had reports about child exploitation in this area. Sir, you'll need to follow us. The uncle laughed nervously, waving his hands. No be wetin una think oh. She be my niece. We just dey survive. Na small hustle. The officer cut him off. You'll explain everything properly at the station. He tried to resist, but the crowd was watching, whispering, some even recording with their phones. His earlier boldness melted like ice in Harmattan sun. As they led him toward the car, he twisted his neck to shout at Chioma, You this useless girl. You done destroy my life. She flinched, but the man placed a hand gently on her shoulder. Look at me, he said calmly. She turned. You did nothing wrong. None of this is your fault. Tears gathered in her eyes, but these were different, lighter somehow. The uncle was bundled into the car, the doors shut, and the sedan drove off slowly, disappearing into the traffic. The crowd slowly broke apart, returning to their hustles, but some still looked at Chioma, whispering. For the first time, she wasn't holding a begging bowl. She was standing beside someone who saw her differently. The man opened his car door and nodded. Come with me, Chioma. It's time you had a real home. Her breath caught. This was the door she had felt opening. And now, it was wide. The ride away from the noisy junction felt unreal to Chioma. She sat quietly in the back seat of the sleek SUV, hands folded tightly in her lap. The city zoomed past her window, yellow buses, hawkers, tall buildings, all moving like a fast dream. For the first time, she wasn't standing in the middle of it. She was moving forward. The man glanced at her through the rearview mirror. You're safe now, he said softly. She looked up, unsure how to reply. Safe. That word still felt new, but this time, it didn't scare her. They arrived at a large compound with tall white walls and flowers neatly lined along the gate. As the SUV rolled in, Chioma's eyes widened. She had never seen anything like it except on the TV in roadside shops. The house stood tall and calm, with clean tiles and bright windows. A woman in a simple but elegant dress stepped out of the house. Her smile was warm, the kind that melts fear. Is this her? She asked the man. He nodded. This is Chioma. The woman knelt a little to Chioma's level. Hello, sweetheart. My name is Auntie Tola. You're welcome. No one had ever welcomed her like that. Her throat tightened. They led her inside. The house smelled of soap and something sweet. She saw books, soft chairs, and light pouring through wide windows. She kept touching things gently, afraid they might break. From now on, the man said, standing by the staircase, you'll go to school. You'll eat well. You'll sleep in your own bed. You don't owe anyone on the street anymore. Chioma stared at him, her eyes filling with tears. Why you help me, she whispered. He smiled softly. Because someone once helped me too. And I promise to do the same for another child someday. Her tears finally fell, but they weren't heavy. They were new tears, of hope, not pain. That night, as she lay on a clean, soft bed for the very first time, she stared at the ceiling, her heart steady. Lagos was still noisy outside, but inside, everything was quiet. Tomorrow was no longer something to fear. It was something to look forward to.